So today we're talking about the power of productivity. And, what is productivity? I really think of productivity as it's a tool to get us to freedom and confidence. I mean, if we can do more in less time and know that we're going to be able to do the things that we want to do, I mean, productivity is really the way that we can get there. So, think about however much you have to do in a 5-day work week. If you could be more productive if you could get that 5 days of work done in just 2 days, because you can just supercharge your focus, supercharge your productivity. I mean, just imagine how much freedom and confidence that would give you. How much, imagine what that would mean for you, for your career, for your family, for your health, for your money, if you could just get more done in less time with less stress. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Again, imagine if you only take 2 days to do 5 days of work, when you go to ask for a promotion, how much confidence do you have going to ask for that promotion, get more money, get more freedom? Same thing if you're a freelancer and you can do 5 days worth of freelance work in only two because you've just locked in your productivity and your time management. I mean, how many more clients can you take on? How much more money can you make? And then how much more time and vacation can you take? And the reason that I think a lot of people aren't able to get to that top peak level of productivity is just because we're never taught. We go to school and we learn that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? We learn the quadratic formula, but we don't learn the formulas for actually accomplishing things with our time and making the most of our time. And then we get a job, right? We go off in the world and they say, do all this stuff. And we've got this big pile of stuff that we have to do. And then nobody teaches us how to actually do it effectively. We know how to do our job, how to do our skill, but we're never taught how to organize our time, how to say no to the wrong things, and how to say yes and really focus on the things that make a difference in the world and that really, really matter. So that is what we're talking about today. How to get past the obstacle of just not knowing, and then get past our internal obstacles of how do we become more productive. So let me start sharing my screen and we will get there once I find my screen. Here we go. And my notes. Alrighty, so if you'd like to grab everyone can see the screen okay? Perfect. If you want to grab the slides for this presentation, I'll have a list of my suggested books. I'll send those out by email as well, but you can follow along, scan the QR code. I'll leave that up for just another second. I saw somebody do this on a presentation the other day and I loved it. I thought it was so cool. And then, so then now I've got his slides and you'll have these as well. Again, this recording will be going out. We'll be sending it by email. I know we had a little bit of issue with that going out, but again, thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. This is my first official, but we'll get to that in a second. So today we are talking about the power of productivity, the secrets of sustainable success, because you can crush it for a week and really get so much done, but you can't do that every week because that's just not sustainable. And that's really what we're here to do. It doesn't matter how much you get done with your life. If you hate your life because you're just exhausted and you can't actually focus, or you can't rest, or you can't take a vacation, or you can't, spend all this money you're making on the things that actually make you happy, what's it worth? So that's why my big thing is sustainable productivity, sustainable success, work that you can do in and out for years and years. And that's what's great, is that when you learn these skills, when you really build up your productivity systems at the beginning of your life, you've got them for the rest of your life. You've got these habits and you've got these skills that you can return to. So I say, get your productivity locked in now and you'll have it for the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, however many years. So who am I? Well, my name's Jeremy. A lot of you know me already. Basically, why I got into productivity is in 2011, I was in my first semester of college. I was in my freshman classes. I was doing a degree in composition. And lo and behold, I had 2 papers due at the end of the same week. And I was trying to work on them and I just couldn't do it. I was so overwhelmed. I remember sitting, my brother just came in the room. I wonder if he'll remember this. I was so frozen because I had the stress of all my music classes, all my other classes, and just trying to write these papers. And I had this breakdown and I was like, I just can't move forward. My brain couldn't move forward because I was so overwhelmed with everything I was trying to do. And I had no idea how to do and balance all this stuff. My health was crap because I was in college, so I was staying up late and drinking and eating crap food. But I wanted to do good. I knew I could do good if I really wanted to. So after I recovered from that, I finally got the papers written and I sat down and I had a big heart to heart with myself. And I said, Jeremy, it's you're in your first year of college. You want to do good things with your life. You want to have this great life in music. If you can't deal with two papers being due in the same week, if you can't just balance your time, if you can't do your work quickly enough, how the hell are you going to do anything else in your life? Let alone go to grad school, let alone have an actual career. So I started in 2011 studying everything I could. I started learning every little bit of productivity advice I could. I started reading every book. I started listening to every podcast. I started taking courses, watching YouTube videos, basically just learning everything. How do these successful people be successful? How do they do so much and accomplish so much? And I wanted to learn that because I knew I wanted to be successful. I knew I could do good in classical music if I could just learn to balance my time and balance and actually accomplish things. So I started learning productivity, time management, and health. 12 years later, I've been studying productivity for 12 years now, testing all these things, reading every book I could get my hands on, and really learning what works for me and what works for other people. I said this is my first official, teaching course. I've been teaching people, I get people asking me all the time, like, how do you do all this? How do you do the podcast? How do you have all these conducting jobs and still get all your stuff done? And it's just because I've been practicing, I've been learning, and I've learned what works for me and for others. And so that's why I'm sharing this today. So I went from not being able to handle two papers due in the same week to, now I conduct with two orchestras in Colorado, hopefully three. I'm waiting for the results of an audition. I run two podcasts promoting classical music. I work a full-time job in marketing with the Fort Collins Symphony. I go to the gym 4 times a week. I sleep 8 hours a night, and I play video games with my brother each week, except he's in school right now, so we haven't been meeting every week. And I love to watch movies with my wife. We watch about 200 movies each year. I keep track of them because I love to go back and see those memories. So what happened between 2011 and now to get to this point where I can do all these things with my life and have accomplished all these things and still be not overwhelmed and still be getting all the sleep I need and taking care of my body? And that's what we're talking about today. So this is kind of the foundational equation for how to get things done. Productivity, what you do or how much you do, is equal to the time that you spend doing something and the intensity of your focus. This equation is from Cal Newport. You'll see a lot of his books in the suggested reading at the end. I think of this as if you're driving a car, the time is how long you're driving, the focus is how fast you're driving, and the productivity is how far you actually get with all that driving time. And this is a really good equation because you can start adjusting these things. If you want to get more done in the same amount of time, you need to focus more on what you're doing. If you can focus more and spend more time, you can get more done. But also, if you want to reduce the time, you can increase your focus. So these are all these levers you can push. But there's a little bit of nuance that goes on top of this because we are not robots. We're not machines. We can't keep just working, and that's why we get overwhelmed. That's why we get tired at the end of the day. So all of this sits on top of energy and motivation. And energy and motivation, if productivity is how far we're going in the car, energy and motivation is the gas in the car. We need it to move forward, and they both run out. And so that's what this idea of sustainable productivity is all about. Now, usually we have energy and motivation. If you have absolutely zero motivation, there's something you absolutely don't want to do, if you have enough energy, you can do it. The only thing stopping you is yourself from just doing this thing. If your energy is all the way to zero, if you are lying sick in bed and you broke all your bones and you're just totally immobile, you're not going to get up and do anything. You're not going to get up and go get the mail from the mailbox. But if you have enough motivation, if your house is on fire, you're going to get your ass out of bed and you're going to go outside and meet at the safe place at the mailbox. So usually we have these two in balance, and that's really the best way. And energy comes from taking care of yourself and not doing too much and recovering and sleeping. So that's why I hate seeing people try to do all-nighters. Yes, you can get to a deadline, but that's not sustainable. So I'll say it right now, if you are not sleeping well and taking care of yourself, you're not reaching your peak productivity unless you have really, really good motivation to back it up. And that's your why. That's your short term, why am I doing this today? And that's your long term, why am I sticking with this difficult thing for years and years to reach my goal? So today we're going to be digging into productivity, time, and focus, and how you can really optimize each of those, like for daily, weekly, and monthly productivity. Energy and motivation is a whole other thing with so much more to talk about. We'll touch on it here and there, but today we're going to be talking about productivity, time, and focus, the three levers that we can really use. So let's talk about focus. This is how you're doing the work. Once you're actually sitting down doing the work, this is how we do it. So focus is all about intention and clarity. If you don't know what you're trying to focus on, trying to focus doesn't matter because you don't know what you're trying to focus on. That's like trying to drive the car and you don't know where you're actually trying to go. But if you know where you're trying to go, then you can get there faster, easier, with less stress. So focus, I like to say, know exactly what you're doing at any time. I will have a whiteboard here that I write exactly what I'm doing today, and then I don't work on anything else until that's done. If you're trying to clear out your email inbox, you can go in there and start kind of clearing it out. But if you have an exact set of things that you're doing, you say, I start from the bottom and I go in to clear these emails one by one, either by answering them or putting them on the calendar to do later, or whatever it is, or ignoring them. You're going to get through those emails so much faster with less stress and with less just feeling crappy at the end of it. So focus is all about, like I said, focusing on one thing at a time. And what's really important with this is also avoiding any context switching. Again, if you're in your email inbox and you're going through one at a time, if you're going through your email inbox and you don't have a plan, you might look at one email and be like, well, I don't know, let me think about that. And you turn to another email. And now you have to think of all these other different things that have to do with that email. And then you turn to another email and you're constantly switching the context upon which you need to make decisions. If you're studying something and you turn and pick up your phone and start looking at it, now you're thinking about other things in a different context. Your brain has to readjust to the new context. And then when you go back to study, your short-term memory, you don't have all that stuff that you were kind of building up. So avoiding context switching is super, super important to actually focusing on the work that you're doing and doing it effectively. Similar to this, multitasking is the enemy. We think we can do it, but actually all we're doing is we're context switching really fast, and you might feel like you're getting more done, but if you are getting more done, it's getting more done at a much lower quality. I forgot to say at the end, go ahead and take notes. Please take notes. We'll send out the replay, but I really want to know what you guys love about this presentation, what really gets you, what you learn. As we're trying to focus on one thing, we got to destroy the things that try to pull us into another context. And these are distractions. Distractions come both external and internal. So my favorite example of this is your phone. I mean, whose phone doesn't take all of their time during the day? So an external distraction is somebody coming into your office, the dog barking at something and you have to go check it out, your kid has to go to school, whatever. The external distraction is something outside of you that draws your attention. If your phone rings, the phone ringing is an external distraction. The internal distractions are the things that you want to do that draw you away from what you actually want to do. So when the phone rings, hearing the phone ringing is an external distraction, but you're wanting to know what's on the other side of your phone ringing or dinging. You're wanting to go check that notification. That's the internal distraction that pulls you away. This is also just being bored. If you're working on a long project and you get bored, that's an internal distraction to pull you away and to pull to something else. So one of the things I do in my coaching one-on-one is we list every single external and internal distraction. There are ways to get past each of them. The external are easier. They're, put your phone on silent, work from somewhere where people can't bother you. The internal distractions are a lot harder to identify and overcome because they all come from inside. We'll talk about procrastination later, but that's basically a really, really big set of internal distractions that will hit you and keep you from doing your work and doing it well. The third way to really build your focus and build the intensity of your focus is to build your life and train your brain for focus. This can be reading. When was the last time you just sat down for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, and read and did absolutely nothing else? We'll probably check our phone. We'll probably get distracted by something. I pick on my nails a lot when I'm getting distracted. That's one of my internal distractions. And so when was the last time you actually just sat down, set a timer, and read for 25 minutes? I mean, really, we're so used to doing more than one thing at a time. And if we're not doing more than one thing, we're still doing more than one thing at a time. We're getting distracted by other things. So reading is a really, really good way. I try to do this every day. I try to set a timer and do 25 minutes only focusing on what's directly in front of me in the book and taking notes about it. Meditating is a really good way to build these skills. I mean, meditation can be very simple. It can be just watching your breath. But the whole idea is that you have internal distractions pulling at your attention and then you just return to it. So meditation is really strong. You can do it at any time for any amount of time. Doing hard things is really, really important too, because what happens one of the reasons that we get these internal distractions is because we're doing a hard thing and we get to this moment where it's hard or we get bored because it's difficult and it takes a long time, or it's just hard enough that we're not sure what the next step is. And that's when we want to grab the phone. That's when we want to step away. That's when we want to do these other things. So if you can really get used to doing hard things, again, these are habits that take a while to build and practice, then you can get more used to doing hard things and sticking with it. And that's really what it takes to do the hard things that are worth doing in your life. And similar to that is embracing boredom. If you're waiting in line at the store and it gets, you're not doing anything for 20 seconds, just stand there for 20 seconds. It's okay. It's only 20 seconds. It's not that long. We don't have to pull out our phone. That trains our brain that anytime we get bored, then we need stimulation. And if you're trying to do hard work for a long time and focus, you're going to get bored a lot of little times. And that's when we want to stop the internal distractions. Again, it's a whole thing about finding and breaking all these internal distractions. It's very, very difficult. It takes a while, but it's really, really powerful. One other thing that most people don't think about is to create focus rituals. So every time you're sitting down to focus, if you do the same little ritual, this can be as simple as saying it's focus time now, or putting on the same music, something that happens on a recurring basis so that your brain and your mind and your whole system, you start to realize, hey, it's focus time. So when I do this, it's focus time. And then it becomes easier to get into those focus times. So if you can create little rituals, again, it doesn't have to be anything big. Some people will have the same tea every time. I have green tea and then I focus and your body starts to associate this tea with the mental state of focusing. Charles Darwin, I think, used to take an 8-mile walk and that was his beginning. And he would think on that walk and that was how he kind of got into it. So these are really the big 3 things on focus. And again, that's the intensity of while you're working on something, making sure that you're doing the best work that you can in that time. If you're having trouble focusing, here are a couple quick little hacks. Here, I know a lot of people just want these. Set a timer for 10 minutes and just work for 10 minutes. It takes about 6, 7, 8 minutes for our minds to actually refocus on something after we've context switched. So if you're having trouble focusing, set a timer for 10 minutes. That'll get you enough time. It's 10 minutes, it's easy. And that'll get you enough time focusing on the thing that you can actually reframe what you're focusing on and kind of get in that groove and get in that rhythm. So that's a really good way to just get started. You can also generate energy and motivation. Again, I said at the beginning that we need that energy and motivation to work. We need that gas in the tank to do anything. So this can be just kind of pumping yourself up a little bit. Some people will bounce And some people will, I do like kind of punches and I go, yeah, here we go. Just kind of, it's kind of stupid and it doesn't really work in the office, but it's kind of like a ritual. It gets you in that zone and kind of generates a little bit of energy. We're not really thermometers with our energy. We don't, say, okay, it's 50 degrees. We're more like thermostats. We're saying, okay, it feels like 50 degrees. Let me turn it up. And you can actually generate some short-term energy like this and some motivation to just get pumped to just do something. So if you're having trouble focusing, just pretend that you're really into what you're doing and make a bit of a game out of it. You can also use FocusMate. This is one of my favorite tools, and we'll talk about it a bit later as well. It's basically like you get on a Zoom call with somebody and the two of you just work on your thing and do nothing else. It's great. I know Diana, I met Diana on FocusMate. So I put together almost this entire presentation just using FocusMate over the past week. It's really fantastic. It's quite cheap, but I use it literally every single day. And again, you're forced to sit and work because there's somebody else on the camera with you. And this is the nerdiest way to get your focus in. So Dr. Andrew Huberman is a Stanford professor. He has one of the best podcasts ever made. And the neurotransmitter that you've probably heard of is dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of seeking out or motivation. The neurotransmitter acetylcholine is associated with our focus and what we're focusing on. And this is very closely linked to our visual field. So when you get really angry or when you get really in the moment, right, it feels like everything hones in on one spot because you're really focused on that. And so a way to do this the other way is if you can stare at a dot on the wall for 60 seconds, if you can wear a hat or do this with your eyes, after a little bit, this will actually create more of that, your body will create more of that neurotransmitter that's linked with focus. You'll see programmers with like hoodies on, and that's because it restricts your visual field. And so if you can focus on a dot for 60 seconds, it actually really helps. And again, that's a great focus ritual to start any focus section. Alrighty, that is the focus section. I'm going to check the chat, see if there have been any new questions, and get a drink for myself. I'm not used to drinking. I'm not used to speaking this loudly for this long. Alrighty. So yeah, put some questions in the chat, and also, if something really stands out to you that you love, put it in the chat, because other people are thinking the same thing. Alrighty. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, we've talked about how to focus. Now we're going to talk about what to focus on. And productivity is kind of the catch-all term that I use for how much you accomplish, but also what you're trying to accomplish. So after we focus, we need to figure out what to focus on. This is what to do with your time and focus. And just like focus started with clarity, this is really clarity on what you're doing and why you're doing it and prioritizing the things on your plate. So this is also your calendar. This is your time management that we're going to be talking about right now. And again, it all comes back to intention. If you can be really intentional about what you're trying to do and what you're not trying to do, that is going to focus that's going to zoom in, focus the focus that you have with the time that you're spending. So the biggest question to ask first is what tasks actually move the needle? Which ones matter? Which ones actually move you forward and create value in the world? If you're an author, writing and editing what you're writing is the biggest task. Doing your taxes does not really move the needle. We have to do it. It takes a lot of time, but that's not a high quality needle moving task. And what we really want to focus on to increase our productivity and to create more value in the world and to, get the life that we really want is we want to focus on the tasks that actually move the needle in your career. For conductors, that's studying. For a writer, that's writing. For a business person, that's, researching. Whatever it happens to be for you, this is also very personal, is identify those tasks and make sure that you build your life about having as much time for those as you can. And on the opposite end, what are all the things that you have to do that you don't really have to do? What can you get off your plate so that you can spend more time, more focus on the things that really, really, really matter? There's a great thing called the Eisenhower matrix. We'll come back to the Pareto principle. If you've seen this before, This is great. So this is basically a matrix for making decisions about the value of a task and whether you should do it. So on the top, you've got urgent and not urgent. And on the left, you've got important, not important. Box one things, urgent and important. I mean, these are like the things you have to do today, but that also move your business, move your life, create your value, whatever it is you need to do. These are the things you want to focus on. Box two, not urgent, but still important. These are the things, you don't have to do them today. This is what we keep putting off and off and off. For the past 2 months, I've had make a dentist appointment on my to-do list, and I kept not doing it. I kept moving it to the next day in my planner, and it took me 2 freaking months to do it. It was important to do, but it's not urgent. So these box two things are really important to focus on because we put things in there and we keep putting them off even though they're important. But then we also put some things that we think are important that aren't actually important. We'll talk about that in a second. Then box three, it's urgent, but it's not important. This is like crap that comes up at work. It doesn't really matter, but it has to be done. And then box four is not important, not urgent. This is stuff, just get it off your plate. If you can, just totally stop doing it. I've found some things in my life, I can just stop doing them and nothing matters. Nothing goes bad. Don't do that unless you're sure. For urgent, not important, box three, some people say to delegate these. If you're not in a position to delegate these things, this could also be like laundry. Like you have to do your laundry, but it's not like the biggest deal. You can delegate that. You can hire somebody to do your laundry. This is also stuff that I like to just see, okay, this keeps coming up. Can I just make sure this never comes up again? Is this a process that I can build into my life and my work so that this is not a problem in the future? So that's the Eisenhower matrix. Really good for making these decisions and questioning like what is on my plate and does it have to be on my plate? The Pareto principle, or otherwise known as the 80-20 principle, is really good for this as well. This is a principle that we see in nature, in mathematics, in business, and it's basically the idea that 80% of the results come from only 20% of the effort. So to do this, you would want to write down all the things that you do and all the value that you bring. And you'll find that most of the things you do don't actually bring that much value. There's probably about 20% of them that bring much more value than anything else. Alrighty, I see a chat comment. Do we have a question? It is very useful. Yeah, the Eisenhower matrix or the Pareto principle, Tanya. They're both great. I love both of these frameworks. Alrighty. Yes, matrix is great. I prioritize in Todoist. I use Todoist sometimes, and I prioritize these priority 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if it's a priority 4, I know that I'm probably never going to get to it. So the next part of productivity, this goes in line with your energy. And that's, when you get to the end of the day and you're just exhausted. You get to the end of the day, you did so much stuff, but you're just overwhelmed and exhausted. And then you still didn't really get anything done. And then you go home and you're tired and you can't rest because you've got all these things running through your brain. So one of the most important things you can do, this comes directly from Getting Things Done by David Allen. If you've heard of that book, if you've heard of his system, it's, classic stress-free productivity, I think is actually the tagline on the book. A brain dump or a mind sweep is, you want to do this maybe quarterly, monthly, whatever it is. And basically you're just getting everything out of your head and putting it on paper. List every single thing you can think of. It only takes 30 minutes, but you're going to see that there's so much stuff that you didn't realize you were still keeping in your head. This is really important, again, for the stress-free part. An open loop is when you've said you're going to do something, or you've had an idea, or you have something that you have to do, but it's not written down and you don't have a plan for it. So if you go to a meeting and we talk about doing something and somebody says, Jeremy, would you go do that thing? If I don't write that down, that loop is going to keep going in my brain because my brain doesn't want to forget it. So what you want to do is close all the open loops, and that's part of what this brain dump is. We'll talk about in a second how to make sure you don't have any open loops ever. But every once in a while, write down just everything on your plate, everything that comes up, and you'll find you have pages. It's a little scary at first because you'll see all this crap that you have to do, but that's also a really good sign that maybe you've got too much crap and you need to start organizing this better. And then once you've got that big list, you can start to cut it down. You can start to mark out, this doesn't matter. Most of it won't matter. A lot of things feel important in the moment, but they don't actually matter. This is the brain dump from David Allen. So projects, list every single project that's still not completed. List every project that still needs to be started, things that are coming up, every project that you're supposed to look into. So as you can see, it just keeps going. Everything that you're waiting for, list, oh my God, this person said they were going to get me this thing. I'm still waiting for that. I emailed this person. I'm still waiting for that. I was supposed to get a call back from my dentist about when to schedule the thing. Write that down so you can get everything out of your mind that you need to. Because our goal with stress-free productivity is that when the workday's over, when we've completed a bunch of great work, we can actually relax. And we're not just trying to recover for the next day, but we can actually enjoy the time that we're not working. This is from my bullet journal. This is, I think, 2 Tuesdays ago, the 28th. You'll see those lines straight through. These were things that were put on my plate. And then at the end of the day, or that I put on my own plate, which is a lot of the time, at the end of the day, I decided that these were things that did not need to be done. And look, that's four fewer things that I need to do in the day. Things that will not make a difference. Nobody in the world will care if I don't do these things. So that's a great example. This is from the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown, one of the best productivity books ever written. And I think this graphic just sums it all up with what's on your plate. This is great for, if you have all this stuff on your day, you're not really going to get anywhere. But if you can focus that energy and focus your focus on one thing, how much can you get done? So much. And that's really the big difference with productivity, is what you're focusing on. Finally, planning, the time management will come up in a second. We want to do daily and weekly planning. And then you can do bigger planning if you like. I've never found it helpful. Some people do. But let's talk about daily and weekly planning. And again, this is just how to organize your day so that you can focus. Use an inbox, use a notebook, whatever it is, use an open Word document. Anytime something comes in that you have to think about, write it down. Again, we want to close every single open loop. You don't have to solve it, but writing it down will get it out of your head and release that kind of mental strain. Again, we talked about context switching earlier. Release that mental strain of always having to think of these things. At the end of the day, do a workday shutdown, and at the beginning of the day, do a startup. There's a reason that the startup comes after the shutdown, because the workday shutdown is more important. Because again, you're looking at what happened in this day, you're making a little bit of a plan for tomorrow, and you're releasing any open loops that might keep you from being able to relax at night, releasing any open loops that might keep you from being able to enjoy because you're still thinking about work. So at the end of every day, I look through my day, I write down anything else that I can remember.
I've been preventing myself from eating it.
And I plan for the next day.
Leave out for you.
Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and mute Brad. Okay. So super important. End of the day, shut down those loops, write those things down. I like to make kind of a general plan for the next day, but that might change. Urgent things might come up. You never really know. So workday shutdown and startup, every single workday that you can is going to let you enjoy your nights and actually be able to sleep and recover. Close all open loops. We said that already. Now, the weekly plan is where the real magic happens with juggling multiple things and juggling all these different things. At the end of every week, clear your inbox. Really take some time. Some people do this on Friday, some people do it on Sunday, some people do it on Monday. Some weekly rhythm that you can do every week where you can look at what happened, clear your inbox, look at all the tasks, cull any tasks, mark any other ones important, review your calendar, review your tasks, review your emails, whatever it is. Again, a lot of this stress comes from us having too much on our plate that we're trying to focus on. Did my video pause for everybody? Oh, okay, it's frozen for me. Okay, good. And then, this is the most important thing. This is the most important thing about the weekly review. Plan for the next 2 weeks. So instead of planning Friday to Friday, plan for the next Friday and look at the week after. plan for the next Friday, and look at the week after. This gives you a little bit more space. You can do this monthly as well, but that usually tends to be too much time. This gives you that space to see things that are coming up and plan better for them. And I promise to teach how to juggle multiple jobs and like a side hustle plus a main job and doing these other things. This is really how you do that. It's having the things in your mind long enough ahead so that you can say, oh, I've got this big deadline done in 2 weeks. I can't start that next Monday. I need to start it this coming week. And that's how you can start to get ahead. So weekly and daily planning at minimum are really important. Yearly planning is fine, but yearly planning doesn't really have the urgency or the usefulness. You can see big rocks coming up, big events, and of course you're probably going to be planning for those already. But that's a given, daily and weekly minimum. Now that we've talked about how to focus and what we're focusing on, let's talk about time. Let's talk about how to organize time. We check the chat. Brain dumps. Yes. Thank you, Diana. Yeah, brain dumps and the weekly planning. This is real powerful stuff. This is how I got to actually organize stuff without being stressed all the time. Now let's talk about time management, because this is another thing that everyone really wants to learn about. Again, time management is about intention and clarity. While you know how to focus now, you know what to focus on, let's put it in the calendar. Let's actually put it in the day so that we know how to move forward in the day. Time is, again, about focusing on one thing at a time. And there are 2 ways to do this. The first one's time blocking. This is really powerful. You may have heard of this before, you may not have. Some people call it time boxing. And this is basically just using a calendar. This is setting an intention for every minute of your workday and then working on it. This is really important because you can have a task list that's 30 items long, and that's not realistic. You just can't do that. That doesn't account for the reality of time itself. And that's the one thing we are all having to work within. That's the one constraint we all have, is that we all have 24 hours a day. So if you time block your time, if you focus on setting your time rather than your tasks, you will be more successful. Here's the time block example from Cal Newport's, and you can see it's really simple. 9 to 10:30, finish the report. That 10:30 to 1, that's a group of administrative block, and he has that written on the task on the right, the morning tasks. Research client, lunch with Sam, email, planning meeting, edit, copy, and shutdown. You see that Cal Newport has a shutdown routine at the end of his day. So again, this is really just giving every moment a job. What this does is it lets you, as your day, be realistic with what you can actually accomplish in a day. And when you get distracted, when you're procrastinating, all you have to do is look at the time block and what time is it? What am I supposed to be working on? And get back on. So we're giving each minute a job. Some people don't like doing this because it feels constricting, but it's really freeing if you can get good at it. And you can also add some flexibility. There is flexibility because things will come up and you want to roll with the punches. If your boss comes and talks to you and you just have to stop, or if another meeting comes up, or if you weren't able to get something done, then you do want to adjust your time blocks. The idea is just to keep it true. This is actually what happened, and to always have a plan for what's coming next. If you get derailed, take 5 minutes, write out a new time block for the rest of the day. You'll see an example of that in a second. And then you get back on task, and that's what's great about this. You can also learn from what really happened. This is what I do with my coaching clients a lot, is we spend an entire month setting an intention for the day and then seeing what actually happened. Setting an intention of the day and then seeing what actually happened. I'll come back to these in a second. This is one of my time blocks. This is from September 26th, 2022. So I had and this is actually a concert. This is a rehearsal day. So this is not a normal day, but it was a day that I had to be out until 9 o'clock that night. And so I started working. I did some admin work at 10. I use those slashes that's kind of my flexibility. That lets me have some flexibility if something takes a little longer, if something takes less time, if I want to take a walk, I need to go to the bathroom, whatever. That's my kind of flexibility. I had an hour and a half of finishing some emails I was writing, and then I was planning to build slides. but I started talking with one of my coworkers. Then I finally got to the slides. I was planning to prep socials and trade ads down on the bottom left, and I ended up having to keep working on the slides and PowerPoints. So what this revealed to me is that the slides and the PowerPoints are going to take more time than I think they will. They are, after you do this for a couple weeks, after you really look at what you intended to do and what happened, you'll find that most of the time you think something's going to take about half as much time as it's actually going to take. I used to set aside 30 minutes to write a marketing email for my Symphony job, and I very quickly learned that it's going to take at least an hour and a half, because then I'm going to have to adjust that marketing email for a different segment, and I'm probably going to be writing something new, and then a lot of times that email turns into a blog post. So now I know when I'm writing a marketing email, I set an hour and a half to 2 hours to do it, instead of lying to myself that I can get it done in 30 minutes, and I really could, but I choose to adjust the time and make sure that I do a good job. This is a time block from just this past Thursday when I was working on this presentation. You can do this in your calendar. What you lose, though, is you lose the history of what you've done, and you lose that really, really good information about what actually happened. So this is actually inaccurate, because at 7 o'clock I didn't read because I was still really in the presentation. I practiced it for an hour in a focus mate session, but this is a way you can do it in your calendar. Let's see. Oh, we missed something. Let me go back and get that. So Parkinson's law, learn from what really happened. Parkinson's law basically says that the work that you do will expand to fit the time that you allow it. So if you've got all day to finish a task, you're probably going to take all day, or you're going to keep stretching it out. If you give yourself only 1 hour and you only have that 1 hour, you can get it done in an hour. The task might shrink. You might not do as good a job at it, but you can get it done in an hour. And then the other really strong thing about time blocking is that you have to face the facts of what's on your plate. Again, you want to organize your time, not try to organize your tasks, because your time is real. It cannot move. And so much of what causes stress, so much of what causes this overwhelm, is that we have literally too much than we could ever feasibly do. And something's going to have to give, whether that's the quality of the work, whether that's our sleep. We sure hope not, because again, we're going to need that energy and that health to have a good life and to move forward. But you have to face the facts of what's on your plate, and that's when you want to cut the things that are inessential, and time blocking will face that fact. If you want to be done by 5, this is how much you can do in the day. And that'll also motivate you to focus. That'll also motivate you to really hone in and fit those things into that shorter amount of time. This is why a lot of companies have been successful with a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week, because when you have less time and you have to get the same amount of stuff done, all the fluff, like extra meetings, like screwing around, all that stuff drops out because you focus more on what's actually happening. Skip the time blocks. Another way to focus instead of time blocking is to do themed days. This is also really good if you can swing it. You need more flexibility, but basically to say Monday is administrative day. At work, Monday, I don't try to do any creative work. I just do admin and I just take my meetings. And then it's all in the same context. There's no context switching. And then all the work stuff is done and the rest of the week is fun. The rest of the week I can do content creation. The rest of the week I can edit my podcast. The rest of the week I can study. I can write emails and blog posts, the more fun stuff. If you're a conductor, like a lot of the people in the room are, this is where you set a whole day for study if you can, whatever it takes. This is not viable for everybody, absolutely. And then use your calendar to plan things. If you know you're going to need some time in a week and you just can't fit it in, put it on your calendar and then make sure you show up for that appointment with yourself. This is a much bigger thing than we can cover today, but your calendar is really, really, we follow what's on our calendar, right? We generally do, especially if it's a meeting, we have to go have a meeting with somebody, we do that. So have a meeting with yourself to do what you've decided that you want to do. A couple little things. Use your dead time. If you'll see, let me go back here. So I took this picture near the end of the Oasis for Change. This was a therapy session that I have. It ended early. So I said, let me take a picture of that and let me put it in the presentation. So that's a dead time I use. That's a small crack I use between things to do a little bit of productivity that wasn't, I didn't have to set a whole block for it. It was really small. This is a great time to listen to podcasts and learn something. If you're driving, when you're taking a walk, when you're doing the dishes, whatever it is, I don't encourage trying to be productive with every second of your day, but listen to a podcast when you're doing the dishes or when you're driving or when you're cooking and start to learn new skills. That's a really good way to fit in reading as well. You can do some shallow work in that dead time. If you know you have one email you need to answer, then if you leave a meeting 10 minutes early, answer that email. That's okay. You can also use this time to just review something you've been working on or just relax. Take a second to just take a breather, close your eyes for a minute and relax. And this is all about, do waste time in your day. Do things that aren't productive because they're going to help you be more productive later. Take a break. Every hour I take a 10-minute break. I walk around, I go outside, I look at something that's not my television or not my computer. Take a nap, meditate, walk. All these things will also allow you to have better ideas when you come back to it because your brain is still thinking in the background. When you're not focusing on anything, your brain enters the default mode. And this is when you're kind of daydreaming. This is when you come up with ideas, and this is when your brain starts connecting things. And also closing your eyes. Part of why we feel tired at the end of the day is because we've had visual stimulation for 12 hours. If you close your eyes for 5 minutes and meditate or take a really short nap or just take a break with your eyes closed, that's going to help you feel a lot better. Also, hydrating. Thank you, Diana, for reminding me to hydrate. If you're not drinking enough water, your brain just doesn't work as well as it should be. So let's go to procrastination. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to work through this really, really quick. Procrastination, I mentioned earlier, is all about your internal obstacles. You have to identify the reasons that you don't want to do something and then get past them. This is so personal. So again, I do this in my coaching practice one-on-one. We collect every single procrastination trigger, every single thing that you don't want to do that you keep putting off. We figure out why, and then we figure out how to get past it. It's all internal, but here are some tips. So you can build or reconnect with your motivation. Again, do something to generate your energy and your motivation. Play a game with yourself. Just say like, yo, I'm so excited to do this. Even if it's not true, it'll at least get you over the hump to get started. Also reconnecting with your big why. If this is something that you need to do because it affects somebody else, because somebody else needs you to do this, that's a great way to get over that procrastination. You also sometimes just need to use the discipline and willpower. Procrastination is there because we don't want to do something. And so sometimes you just got to sit down and shut up and do it. And that's when you want to set a timer. That's when you just got to do it sometimes. I mean, there's nothing really else to say. Sometimes procrastination is just having the self-respect to say, no, I don't procrastinate. Sit down and do it. There's also a big part of procrastination that we don't talk about is our past experiences and the associations that we have with them. So when I played violin in college, I played a lot. It was incredibly stressful, and I had a lot of back issues. I had bad posture. My back hurt all the time. It was stressful. I hated it. My body learned that the violin means stress and pain for me. So now I don't even have to go to play my violin. If I see somebody playing violin, my back starts to tighten up and I start to get a little bit stressed because my body and my brain learned that playing the violin is a stressful thing. So sometimes the thing that you want to do, you've taught yourself accidentally that it's stressful, and so you avoid it. And this is another thing we do. We find those internal obstacles, we find those associations, and we stop it. If you are a writer and the act of writing is stressful and you're in pain because you're hunched over and you just hate it and you feel like shit on the other side of it, we want to reconnect the associations that you have with it and make it a pleasurable experience. Procrastination is avoiding pain, the pain of boredom, the pain of discomfort, or the pain of having to, do something that's not perfect. And that's something that we do in the coaching program. We audit your calendar, we audit all your distractions, your procrastinations, we get the right mindset around it. So now we've come full circle. We return to productivity equals time times focus, all over energy and motivation. This is really how we can get stuff done and still be happy at the end of the day. This is just scratching the surface of everything. So again, productivity equals time by focus, all over energy and motivation. That is That's the formula that we want to use. And again, where this is all just scratching the surface, there's so much more to go to. I'm building this into actually a full course where we talk about energy, we talk about motivation, we talk about procrastination really, really, really deep. And I'm going to give you all the books that I've used, all my favorite recommended books and podcasts in a minute. But let's get to some questions. So I'm going to pull the chat back up. And I did see Diana, yes, brain dumps are fantastic. Profile pic. Diana asked, is brain dumping and time blocking, do you recommend pen and paper or digital? So it really depends on you. We actually talked about this in my in my impact group. Diane knows, she was there. It really depends. Both are really, really, really good. I like to start with pen and paper because it takes a little longer. And when something takes longer, it forces you to think about it more. It forces your brain to have to sit with it longer. This is why journaling by hand is so great, because it forces you to slow down and it forces you to think about it. If you're going for speed, if it's really clear what's in there, go ahead and type it out. Doesn't matter. But pen and paper is really good. It also makes it more real. You get a physical sense of how much is there because you can see the pages, and then you can start marking things off. And again, you always have that history when you use pen and paper of what was there and what you adjust. For time blocking, I definitely suggest pen and paper for the same reason when you're starting out, because you can mark it out, because you can see that history, because you can see over the weeks and weeks and weeks of work, you can see what took more time, what took less time, what you're actually able to do. It's also, both of those things keep you away from the distractions of whatever's on your phone, whatever's on the computer. So I always suggest pen and paper if you can. I've been bullet journaling. I'm experimenting with doing bullet journaling planning for the past couple months. And that's really nice again, because it's there. You can always look back to it, and it forces you to slow down and actually physically write, which is really important for how our brains function. The keys don't have the same way that they connect with how we think. So here's my list of the best productivity books. These are like the game changers. This is not all of them, but these are basically the strongest. And we're past 11, so thank you all for sticking around. Feel free to hop out if you'd like. I want to go through this list and keep answering any other questions that come up. I mentioned Cal Newport a couple times. I keep a copy of his book, Deep Work, on my desk to remind me to work deeply. And this book is 100% about what to do when you're actually sitting down and how to organize your life. Cal Newport's podcast is really, really fantastic as well. But he doesn't have a course. He's written this stuff over like 5 books. So you've got to kind of put it together yourself. David Allen, Getting Things Done, is a classic. Chris Bailey's The Productivity Project was one of the really early ones I looked at. And he basically tried out every single productivity thing and then wrote about it in the book. Greg McKeown's Essentialism and Effortless are also perennial bestsellers. I keep Essentialism here on my desk as well to always keep it in mind, asking what's the most important thing I have to do right now, and then letting everything else fall to the side. Oliver Burkeman's 4,000 Weeks. 4,000 weeks, if you live to be 80, 4,000 weeks is how long you live, about. So when you think that we only get about 4,000 weeks, that book is all about putting things in perspective and taking stuff, again, off your plate. Jim Collins' Good to Great business book. James Clear's Atomic Habits is all about building those habits, building those daily habits. Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week is about productivity, but also, again, it's about kind of minimizing the things on your plate so that you can focus on the things that matter and enjoy your life while you're living it. Carol Dweck's Mindset is all about having a growth mindset, all about putting yourself in the mental position to be able to keep moving forward. Angela Duckworth's Grit is very much the same way, that long-term stuff. Brendon Burchard's High Performance Habits is about productivity, but also just about life in general. It's about crafting a life. And his first habit is to gain clarity on whatever you're doing. And that's one of my favorite things in the world, is to actually know what we're doing and be able to do it. Bullet journal method, I've been doing that. That's really good. We talked about this in our impact group the other day too. It's much more of a mindfulness practice and intentionality practice than an actual like artistic system, like a lot of what you see on Instagram or the internet. Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. You do the best work when you know how you work. Brian Moran, The 12-Week Year. Diane runs a group on this that I'm actually about to join. This is about, instead of setting yearly goals, set quarterly goals. So every 12 weeks, you've got a goal and you rush towards it. Make Time is a fantastic time management book. Indistractable is really good on distractions, both the external and the internal. John Acuff's Soundtracks is it's a mindset book. It's about adjusting the way that you talk to yourself to empower yourself. It's a really, really, really easy, fun read. And then Michael Hyatt's Free to Focus. I used Michael Hyatt's planners for many, many years. They saved my butt in grad school. And Free to Focus is again about getting the things off your plate so that you can focus. So do I have the QR code again? I took the QR code off. I'll send this out to everybody by email. And I do have, let's see, if you joined through another link, here's the landing page for the masterclass. It should still let you sign up just so that I can make sure that I get you the recording, the slideshow and everything else. Yeah, thanks, Diana. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad I ran into you. Thank you, Joshua, for coming. Diane, Tanya, Ben. Let me put the here's in the chat again if I can find it. The discount code for that 2-month coaching program. Again, we're gonna go deep in. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to get you 5 days of work in only 2 days, but it's sure gonna feel like that. And again, you're gonna organize your productivity, your mind while we're still here. Since you're still here, I know you like to learn. One other thing I didn't talk about is as you're organizing your day, a circadian rhythm is basically our body's clock. It runs a bunch of the processes in our body. Part of the circadian rhythm is that you get tired at night, right? And then as you're waking up, you get less tired. So there are actually rhythms in the day. So early in the day is when we tend to do our best, most focused work. We'll tend to have a dip in the afternoon at maybe 2 or 3, and that's why we always feel exhausted in the afternoon. It's not just that we've had a long day, it's that our body is actually having a dip in energy. And that's a really good time to do creative work. So you can actually schedule your day to take control of your biology so that in the morning, you've had a cup of coffee, your body is primed and it's actually still on the up. And then, like 8, 9, 10, 11, depending on your personal circadian rhythm, that's the time when you can really crush the most. A lot of really, really productive people will work for 4 hours in the morning and then be done for the day. If you focus well enough, you can get your 4 hours done, have lunch, and then enjoy that lull, have a drink, do whatever you want to do. If you're doing creative work, like writing, like combining ideas in a way, the mornings where you're focused, the afternoon is where your brain enters the default mode network, and it's a little bit more diffuse. It's kind of connecting other ideas. So that's a really good time to kind of explore, do some easier work, be a little bit more creative, just write stuff down. That's a little closer to dreaming, like that free association. So that's just one more way. So again, thank you so much.